Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on the show. If you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do with your life? Are billionaires actually happy? What are their deepest regrets? And are tacos the best food in the entire universe? Today we're here with our friend Noah Kagan, creator of 7 multi-million-dollar businesses, founder and CEO of AppSumo.com, and author of the excellent new best-selling book, $1 Million Weekend. When it comes to creating a life full of fun and adventure, Noah walks the walk. I hope you enjoyed this interview. It's one of my personal faves. Before we get to the interview itself, here's a quick plug. If you'd like to get in the best shape of your life with ridiculously good food, please join our newsletter at fatburningman.com. As a special thanks for signing up, I'll send you a free meal plan and quick start guide so you can get results right away. And if you have a question for me, just hit reply to my newsletter and let me know how I can help you along. I read all of them and reply to as many as I can. All you have to do is go to fatburningman.com, sign up for that newsletter, hit reply, and let me know how you're doing. And if you find this free show valuable, please take a quick moment to make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We're on all of those. So if you have a quick moment, make sure that you leave us a review, share this episode with someone you care about. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate you. All right, on to this show with the one and only Noah Kagan. We're chatting about how the law of 100 can help you achieve and measure success, surprising lessons from asking billionaires about their regrets, how Noah got in the best shape of his life without grinding in the gym, why choosing to move to a place you love can dramatically change your trajectory in business and life, why it's essential to create a list of things to look forward to, why you might want to double down on your quirks, and tons more. Let's go hang out with Noah. All right, folks, today we're here with Noah Kagan, who is number 30 at Facebook, number 4 at Mint, and has since created 7 multi-million-dollar businesses. He founded AppSumo.com, the #1 software deal site for entrepreneurs, created the YouTube channel Noah Kagan Presents, which now has a cool 1 million+ subs, and wrote the brand spanking new book, $1 Million Weekend. Noah is a lover of beef jerky, bike riding, and loves tacos more than anyone I know. Thanks so much for joining us, my dude.
Great to see you, man. It is so good to see you. I'm glad we were connected again.
Me too. I was thinking about this when you sat down for that interview with Tim Ferriss, who's also been on this show a number of times, and you're talking about how you kind of chose to move to Austin early. And that's one of the reasons that we met each other and got together and got some tacos all those years ago. But everyone else was like, why would you ever move to Texas? That's the dumbest idea for your career, for your business, yada, yada, yada. Why did you choose to kind of put passion first and interest first back then? And how has that paid off for you, so to speak?
I think a lot of life you can experiment with things. You could be a scientist, so it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I experimented coming here for a little bit, and I was like, I didn't even know where Austin was on a map.
Right.
I'm from Silicon Valley. Like, I was like, Texas, like who would want to live there? But I came and it was cheap, good prices, which I still like to this day. Great weather, always warm. People were friendly. I remember being on the street, someone smiled at me. And I literally was like, what are you doing? And then you're like, oh, hey. And I just felt right. It just felt right. And so, it's funny, $1 million weekend in business and money. Some of success is just trying something out and then noticing it maybe before other people notice it. And that's where a lot of success happens, because you're like, well, I tried it, loved it. And then, later it does seem like a lot of people now have moved here. And the same reason, with Tim, and I was sharing that I spent half the year in Spain. I went there, just kind of, a buddy said, hey, drop by. So I dropped by and I was like, my God, like there's a beach here is cool. I'm a huge cyclist. It's got literally the best cycling in the world. Like a lot of good looking people. I thought the prices were good. I'm a huge fan of good prices. And it just, it had a really nice vibe. And same thing with that, where I feel like that's going to definitely be a future for a lot of Americans. We're like, oh, and I don't have to be in America all year. And then maybe mixing up that life. So again, for all these things, it's try it out, see how it feels. And you don't have to commit to it forever, but you can for some period of time.
And there's so much in experiencing these different cultures that you can kind of borrow and bring into your own life, from like the walkability in Europe and the fact that you don't have to go and stock up for 2 weeks on a bunch of food and put it into chest freezers or whatever. You can actually just like walk around and go to the cheese shop, go get some fresh meats, and like kind of live that more improvisational, almost ancient lifestyle, and then put that in your own bag of tricks when you come back to Texas, right?
Well, I think one of the things I noticed in Silicon Valley, and that's what probably one of the also key reasons I left, is I was tired of everyone talking about work. I was like, I don't care how many employees you have. I don't care about your funding. I care about living. Like, how's life? What do you do outside of work? Like, what do you love about work? Like, who's the person you've helped? And that's been one of the best things about Spain is like, look up life expectancies. It's much higher in Europe. Well, and then Americans always are like, oh yeah, but they have like their healthcare or something. I'm like, I don't know, just relax, like, and I think what I've always aimed for is, yeah, I wanted to make a lot of money, but I also wanted a lot of living. And so being out in Europe is just such a great environment for that. And getting out of Silicon Valley was definitely like, okay, I don't want this, but there's got to be another way. And so, yeah, being in Europe, man, it's amazing. You walk downstairs, you go get a vegetable. My girlfriend now, we were talking earlier, she has to drive places. She's like, I can't walk. I'm like, you can walk to the mini market. And she's like, can I buy the vegetables there? I'm like, no, baby, do not buy vegetables at a mini market. Like at a bodega. So it's been great to just, try to, I think for everyone out there, I don't know if we all realize like how amazing lives we can actually live. And I think if you just try it, go live in another place, you're like, wow, this is actually like pretty amazing. And then maybe let me work backwards. How can I get here in some amount of time?
And sometimes that means like spending some time in places that you don't enjoy that much, right? Like making a few mistakes. Hopefully, not like buying a house there first. That's why it's so important to be like before you move to a place. And of course, we all need to make sacrifices and move to places for other reasons than just our wants and our hobbies and what we like. But it's super important to know that you can at times in your life make that decision and be like, hey, I totally dig this place. I only spent a weekend here, but let's look into actually moving here. How would our lives be different if we chose our favorite place in the universe, even if it's another country, to live in? Maybe not full time, but like you said, a few months out of the year, maybe half the year.
Yeah, I think, we talk about in business, it's like you can experiment, you try a thing, didn't work, try a thing, didn't work. Same thing goes with living. Like I rented a Lambo. By the way, you can rent Lambos super cheap. You can rent a Lambo for
Yeah.
$200. It's so
What
cheap.
color was it?
It was red. It was like an older one. I was like, let's do a date night. I'm gonna take a Lambo. This is when I was living in LA for 6 months. Went out to Maestro's near Malibu, and I pull up to the valet guy, and he's like, "Man, nice car." I was like, "Man, it's a rental." and, I saw him do the craziest part though. He's like, "One day I wanna get one of those." And I saw him on his phone watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like this could have been more perfect. And I said, hey, it's a rental. You can get it too. And I think people don't realize like they can actually have as much as they want in life. And that's the cool part about business, and really even in health, right? For the most part, there's almost zero discrimination for success, meaning that like success doesn't care about your gender, it doesn't care where you're born, it doesn't care anything. It just cares that you put in the work and the attitude. So, in terms of this life thing, I tried renting Lambos. I bought a Jag. I was like, yo, this stuff sucks. I don't care about cars. I drive a Miata and a Tesla and a scooter, and I'm super happy. And then I tried. I always lived really cheap, like 600 square foot places. Even though I was a multimillionaire, I was like, I don't really care. And then I tried renting like a lake house, and I rented a Malibu beach house. I was like, yo, this having a nice house is really cool. I've never had one because my parents always were very strict, very clean. Couldn't even have friends over. And then I finally tried it, and I was like, oh, cool. So I think that's a lot of life. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it can be small tastes, like a buffet of life, to find out the things we like or don't like, so that we can do more of what we do. And I don't know if people think about it that way, or they don't think about it as an experiment. And maybe just start considering that. What's an experiment for your life today? Like I was thinking, Abel, about a lot of your audience is health related. And it's literally Fat Burning Man podcast. But what's crazy about business and health is that the answers are always so easy. What's the answers to have a healthy life?
It's the fundamentals.
Like you eat well, and then you kind of exercise once in a while. Like, but how is there so much out there telling people otherwise? And that's the same with business and this whole life we live. It's like, it's not that hard in business, and you can do it. You just find something people want, and you ask them to pay you. And then you do it again and again and again. And yes, there's $1 Million Weekend in other places, there's playbooks, but I think we make these things scarier or harder than they have to be in a lot of our lives. Like you can live in Spain and try it out, see if you love it. Maybe you hate Spain, but maybe it's somewhere else. Then you're like, holy crap, I could do this. And it's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah. It's funny too when you consider some of the things that are, at least according to most Americans and Westerners, this isn't something that you should do for in the pursuit of health. Staying up all night, eating and drinking all night, like that's a stereotypical Barcelona kind of like Spain focused way of living, and even European. A lot of other cultures will do this as well. Yet, they're outliving Americans, but so much of this is based around not just food and exercise, but community, how you actually live your life, and think about how much we're isolated these days. I got a hearty taste of living up in the mountains of Colorado, of isolation and what that can kind of like do to you and how it can make you feel if you get too much all at once. And yet, especially post pandemic, a lot of people haven't relearned those habits of how to get together with people, how to socialize, build community. And it's really built into a lot of cultures. And so it was easier to reclaim it after those years. But maybe you can offer a few words about that, because I just remember especially hanging out in Austin with you, Neville, who is a main character in the book, and a lot of other people who are really good at kind of just having fun for fun's sake, meeting people for the sake of fun, different people, interesting people, uninteresting people, and getting them all together to come out and have a good time. So talk about that. Maybe you can just rant on
Yeah.
that.
I was thinking about how my girlfriend came to America. She lives in Spain. That's where we met. She's been there in Europe for about 13 years. And she came to my house, a pretty cool house, right? It's a few $1 million. I've never had something like this. And she's like, are you just alone in here all day? Like, does anyone else come through? Like, how do you meet your neighbors? I was like, well, the one's next door, and I throw football with him every few days after the show, I'm going to go throw football with him. And that's pretty much it. She's like, wow, that's such a difference in Europe. Like her friends literally live 2 blocks away and they'll walk over at night. And so this aspect of community, we're on a planet alone, right? And it's really nice to be with other people. And if you think about even, a lot of what I'm interested in is business, because I think that's a great way to learn about yourself. Business in its essence is just helping another person out. That's
Should
it.
be, yeah.
Right. It's just really like, hey, I made a food for another person, or I made content for another person, or I made software for another person. And I've always really enjoyed waving at people. So maybe next time you're going out somewhere, just wave and realize that we're just connected, trying to all figure this out on a planet. Now, the other thing about community, I would say that's been probably one of my biggest cheat codes in life. And everyone knows these annoying lines like, you're the average of 5 people. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Right? Like I have 5 crappy friends. But the reality, besides doing the wave, which I love a good wave. I'm always waving. I think the other thing that I admire is like, how are you cheating or hacking or optimizing by having better people around you? And so what I've noticed for myself, I have about 17 best friends, give or take. Each one of them actually has like some skill that I really admire that I don't have in myself. And one of the things that I had noticed, it really dawned on me as I'm doing this $1 Million Weekend book tour, was this guy Tynan.com. Remember him? You ever seen him online?
Vaguely, yeah.
Most of my friends are from the internet, which now is kind of normal. But
Right.
Tynan's always
Not
so
back
darn.
then. Yeah.
Not back then. My girlfriends were like, how'd you meet? You met these guys online? Is this like a dating thing you did with them?" And I'm like, right. No, they had a blog, and I commented on their blog, and they replied to my comment. It's like, okay, but what I would say about uh, these guys like Tynan specifically was just how positive they were and their optimism about life. Even Neville. I think growing up in a Jewish household, candidly, we're more of a cynical group of people at times. It's not exclusively, but we're taught to question things, and we're asking, we're worried people are taking things from us again. And being around, here's the hack: is just like notice who's positive in your life, and see how do you spend more time with them. Maybe even interview them. And being with Neville is like he's always copywritingcourse.com. Got to call it out. He's always so happy. And I would hate it. I'm like, dude, why are you trying? He's like, I don't know, just it's all good. Like, look at it. Or Tynan, I was a year ago, I would say I was at a very low point. It was my birthday in February, and I was just, me and this girlfriend broke up, and he flew out. He flew to Austin to sit at my table with me and have tea. And he was like, man, I know it sucks right now, but zoom out in your life. Just go to the clouds and look at your life. 99% is awesome. 1%, yeah, maybe this girl thing isn't working, but we can maybe make it work, which we did. But if you zoomed out it far enough, you're like, wow, really is great. And he said, like you're here, and in your life, this is what he was reflecting to me, like, you're here, man, and I know you want to be here, but that's actually not as far away as you think. And I think what I've noticed from community and just being around that kind of person, which is available to all of us. One, you could subscribe to tiny.com as a newsletter and read how positive he is. But realizing that these changes in our life, whether it's health, which is amazing, right? Because health is very controllable. So you can't blame anybody but yourself for your health. There's some genetics, but a lot of it's within your capacity. And realizing that where you are and where you want to be is probably closer than you think. And I remember him telling me that. And I found that just so inspiring, because I think a lot of our advice these days is really creating gaps of belief, gaps of ability, gaps of where we can actually end up. But realizing maybe those gaps aren't so big, and realizing maybe even today, if you want to change your health, you can go for a walk. You want to change your health, like, have 2 beers instead of 3. And realizing that, like, we can get closer to these things that we think. And that a lot of that is from the community we surround ourselves with. Are you surrounding yourself with the people who are inspiring? Most of my friends are millionaires, but they weren't millionaires when I met them. All of us are poor-naires, or we're dollar-naires. I just surround myself with people I thought were interesting. I met Tim Ferriss 2006 for his book came out. And I was like, this guy's weird. He started surfing in Costa Rica. He had an autoresponder. And I was like, what? You have an autoresponder? I was like, who does that? Ramit Sethi, same thing. This guy, I will teach you to be rich. I met him when he was still in college, and he was just weird then. And so I think for anyone out there, this is something I still do to this day. I'm looking for the weirdos. And whether you're in Ohio, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in India, you can look for people around you. You can also look for people online and connect with them. And I have found that to be probably one of the greatest life hacks there is, because it's inspired me, it's helped me, it's supported me. Like, I had my book launch party on Tuesday. Anton, who I found off Craigslist, which it sounds really erotic the more I say these things out loud, but we hired him at appsumo.com. Met him on Craigslist. He's now my best friend. 2 months ago, we biked across part of America together. That's part of our thing we do. Or I met Adam Gilbert because he commented on my blog. And now he's coming over. He's flying in Monday just to be a part of the book launch. And he's always been one of my guardian angels. And just to put it out there, I'm putting it out here, and I'm repeating it and telling it in different ways where it's available. These people and these people that in our lives that want us to succeed. And if they don't, great. Take power and start changing that today.
And yeah, being in the blogosphere way back then, in like the years that the mid 2000s, late 2000s, I'm so grateful to kind of be an early part of that as well, starting super small before I started the podcast, and kind of coming up as a class of early bloggers, early podcasters, especially in the Austin area, but also kind of on the conference circuit, right? Where you'd go out to California and you'd go up to the Northeast sometimes and watch. It's like seeing what some of these people who were kind of like really struggling back then and super weird, myself included, seeing what's happened and transpired in their own lives and all the lives that they've been able to affect since then. There's nothing like an old friend. There's nothing like reconnecting with someone who you met way back in the day, who just appreciated sitting down with you because you were weird too and you were into this strange stuff. So yeah, all the people out there listening, like, make those relationships early, because once someone becomes the uber famous Tim Ferriss or Ramit or the rest of them, like, you don't need a million new friends once you have that many eyes on you, right? And the things that we all truly value is those who can see the human in us and truly connect. And old friends are the best at that.
Some of them. I had some weird old
That's a good point. Yeah, not all of them.
I guess 2 things I would tell people to do today is, one, you could text someone when you think of them. That's been a little hack for me. I've done it for decades. Like, if someone's on my mind, I just text them right then. Hey, I'm thinking of you. That's it. What else do you? That's it. There's no, like, I'm not trying to trick them. It's just like Jordan Harbinger, someone messaged him, commented about him, and I just sent him a photo. I was like, hey, I was thinking about you. All right, cool, man. It's just kind of nice ways that you can keep in touch with other people. And it's just a way that, some of these people, I would say early on, it's easier to talk to some of them and then just stay in touch as they come across or you think of them. The other, I would say, probably the biggest life upgrade, that's a tinyism, that I've seen for everything is your partner selection. Right. So number one, there's a lot of work and discussion about yourself, right? How do you become a good partner for yourself and have a lot of self-positive talk, which is a whole discussion. But I would say, like, finding Mafe, who's my girlfriend and now baby mama, probably one of the best things ever. Best thing ever. And that's such an upgrade on all things life that I didn't really expect. And there's an Esther Perel quote, or maybe it's an Abel James quote. It's like, if you want variety in life, date one person. And I remember hearing that. And I was like, because I used to be chasing women, and we have these dreams in life, but then our behaviors don't align to the dreams. You ever notice that? You're like, I want to be healthy. So what'd you do today? Sat on the couch. Okay. So is that actually your priority in your dream? If it is, don't guilt yourself. I think that's something to work on. But finding a partner, I wanted a family one day. Never thought I could have one, or I was deserving or worthy of it. But I, just kept working on myself, meaning going to therapy, trying to party less, trying to just hook up less, trying to just do things that made myself feel proud of myself. And then over time, I met someone, and it's just been a game changer in all aspects. Where, just to contrast it, when I do YouTube videos, my ex would really make fun of me. Like, why do you want to do this YouTube? What's wrong with your ego? Like, and I say it out loud now. It's and maybe it's more obvious today because I feel more confident about who I am. But then Mase's like, you need to go film. I'm tired of seeing you. She's like, go get on that interview. I know you're going to like it. But then she's also got a great balance where she's like, you need to be done at 6 and come spend quality time with me. And yeah, I've noticed one of the best ways to improve ourselves is just improve being alone. And I'll just get so freaking anxious being alone. I'm like, oh, I should be doing my phone. I should be doing something. And then I noticed with her, these best partners that really life upgrade, they'll really accept you. They're not going to accept less for you, but they'll accept you. Where, like, I hung out with her last week, and my parents came to visit with the baby and all this stuff. And we didn't do anything except hang out at the house and cook. And she was like, that was the best weekend we've had in a long time. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we go on trips, we do all this other stuff. And she's like, yeah, but you were just with us. It's like, I know, but didn't I like make money and status or this other stuff to avoid having to do real intimacy? And she's like, no, I don't give a shit about your money. I don't care about your house. I don't care if you have one or many followers. I just care if you're a good person to yourself and to me. And that, dude, what a life upgrade to be surrounded. And that, by the way, when I was single, I don't know if a lot of your audience is single, but when I was single, I never believed it existed. I thought I was a unicorn. I really did. Like, I was like, there's not going to be someone good for me. And that's why most of us settle for a lot of things. We settle in our work. We settle in our lives with the way we want to live. We settle in our health, in our relationships. And if we can have a little courage that it exists, and optimism, and then, courage builds confidence. You stick with it. Eventually it does. And this, we talk about connections and community, like find a great life partner. And it's a game changer.
Yeah, one of the other things I really enjoyed about your book, and by the way, it's a fantastic book. There aren't many entrepreneurship books even out there. I've read a number of them. Most of them are super boring, don't have much quirkiness or interesting pieces to them. It's just kind of like the recycled sausage maker, sausage grinder of the self-help stuff that's not super tactical. And I love how real your book is. There are a lot of human elements. And one of the things that you mentioned as well that I think is such a lesson for people, especially to stand out these days on the internet, is having fun, actually being yourself and not giving up and sacrificing your own quirkiness and personality, but doubling down on it in still an appropriate way, right? But I think you're such an awesome example of that, because every time I've interacted with you, and a lot of people in your circle know that you're who you are. You're not like putting on a show. And I love that.
Thank you, man. I think I always, our narratives about our lives evolve, and we kind of change them to make ourselves better heroes in our story, which is also cool though, if you think, because you can be a hero in your story. And what would the hero do? And you can write that chapter, which is really empowering. I think that's one thing I always think about, which is take your power back. And how much times we give up our power because it's fun. It's fun to be a victim because then you can blame another person. But if you actually take power, you're like, holy crap. With, I don't know, being myself and things like that, I think I used to feel very self-conscious. Like, man, I keep getting fired from a job. Man, I like blogging. Man, I like talking about these kind of things. Man, why is it not working out for me? Why is it that I'm good at starting, but I'm not good at sticking with it? And then over time, I do think it's part of an aging thing. It really is. Where you just start accepting. It's like, this is me. It doesn't mean you can't get it better, but accepting the parts of yourself that maybe we're embarrassed about or we're maybe a little even ashamed of. Like one of the I don't know if it was Dalai Lama, but it was like one of the things, most embarrassing things we can do is admit externally what we really want. And I remember thinking, I was like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like I really want to be a little famous. I like attention. Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. And, I think as I got older, I'm now 41, I really in the past few years, and, how can all of us feel more worthy in general? And I think that definitely, I just started accepting like, yeah, I'm weird. I like, doing bright clothes maybe sometimes. Doesn't mean I want to be weird all the time. And if we can accept that earlier, it's like, wow, how cool is that? I think that's probably one of the biggest problems in America is just like not wokeism, but like positive self-talkism.
Sure.
This confidence within ourselves that we can make these changes, and it doesn't have to be extremism, which is I think what I'm seeing a lot of in health and business, like extremism. Like you have to make a million, or you have to lose all this weight with a pill. It's like, okay, why don't you just try to lose a pound this year, and the next year do another pound, and then over time you're actually going to have a sustainable skill or a sustainable business.
We don't all have to be the Liver King.
I think that's just such the most fascinating thing in marketing, really, which is why is it that the majority, and there's going to be a few people today, Abel, that'll change their lives that listen to the show. And the question is, do you want it to be you? That's it. And I believe someone will change their life in the show. And what I just don't understand personally is the appeal of the get fit quick, get rich quick, and the appeal of these extremisms, even like Liver King. Like, hey, if you eat this insane diet and live in the woods, you can have this. And it's like, maybe just question one thing. Like, I don't know. Is that really? I don't know. Like, seems like maybe having water and not a bunch of other things, like maybe it's not that way. And same thing in business, right? There's these people preaching, selling very expensive things, telling you don't have it, and they have supplements for you to buy and all this other stuff. And I think what I'm trying to preach for myself is that it's accessible to everyone, and that part of success is sustainability. And what's the long cuts? Because what I've noticed for myself, even with this book and with my business and my relationships, they were all hard. And almost every time that it's not hard, and I don't mean hard like I hate my life, but just like, wow, this is a little harder than usual. But those are really also how we end up liking ourselves the most, and we end up living the best lives. And those are the long cuts. Those really are the long cuts, right? Not getting, my mom talks about her diet every week. It's very annoying. I'm so fat this week. And then she'll go on, like, she eats like, I'm not joking, half of an English muffin with non-fat cottage cheese. And then she works out 6 days a week, 70 years old almost. She's fitter than almost everyone. There's more push-ups than her. But she's always talking about it. And I feel like, can you just accept how you like to eat and you like to live? And then if you want to be healthy, like, fine, just like, let's do the long cut. Where, guess what? You want to eat, In-N-Out burger? Great, go for it. And that's okay. And then the next day, you don't have to guilt yourself about these things. And I think if there's more encouragement and acceptance and excitement for this longer journey that really sustains, that builds true habits, not, you can change the habit, you can start a habit today, but you stick with it to make it a habit. And you get these long cuts, you get these amazingly compounded long results.
But you have to kind of identify what works for you and what you could do forever, right? Like envisioning like coming up with Fat Burning Man, this like silly tongue-in-cheek, super quirky name for a project around health was really from, okay, like what's a hobby that I have that I could turn into something that I do more of? Interviewing people, talking to people around health, fitness, that sort of thing, not in any way related to any of my jobs or careers before this. And, here I am like 12 plus years later, still at it, not because like I'm addicted to it or even because it's my only career option. There are far better career options as far as getting paid goes than having a podcast and kind of like an online platform, of course. But totally something that I'm still psyched about, talking to interesting people, reading their books, going deep. Like the idea that you can sit down with someone for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours plus, and ask them super deep questions about the meaning of life and where they're going, why they do what they do, that you can share with the world and hopefully other people can get value out of. That's my idea of fun. And, having it based around the world of health just means that you can kind of talk about health and how to be better a little bit, but really talk about whatever you want. One of the things I love about your YouTube channel, and I know you've done podcasting and other, channels as well on all sorts of different platforms, but you decided to go into YouTube and kind of double down on it because it was working. You're really good at it. It seems like it's going really well for you. And it's one of my favorite things to watch. You like sit down with people and ask them those super deep questions. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit too. How you talk about, what are your regrets in life? What worked well? You sit down with millionaires, billionaires, people who have started businesses, people who work nowhere, fill jobs, who are just getting started. And you ask them these questions. What is that process like for you?
One thing I want to comment, it's hard to know what we want to do forever. And sometimes what I've noticed, like I'll go to therapy and talk about this what if life of the future. And he's like, Dr. Resnick's like, Noah, don't worry so much about that. Let's worry about today. And so, because what happens with a lot of people is I would like to be fit, or I'd like to have a podcast, or I'd like to have a cool job, or I'd like to have a family, or I'd like to live in these multiple places. But it sometimes maybe seems so out of reach or such a big thing that they'll never just do the thing, what they can do today, which is maybe it's post something on social media, or maybe it's going for a walk, or maybe it's texting one friend or complimenting one person online they like, or maybe it's putting out something on a podcast because they're curious about it. And I do think you have to find the thing that you enjoy and you can stick with, and then ultimately find ways to make it enjoyable to stick with it for a long period of time. Most people have it backwards is the problem. They stick with things that are not working very, very long.
Yeah.
And then they don't find the things that work very quickly. And the right way that I found is you got to start really quickly, find things that don't work so you can find the thing that works that you can actually stick with success for a very long period of time. And, who knew that yes, this podcasting thing, 12 years, I don't think people are giving someone like you, it's not that you need enough credit externally. I'm just saying like honoring longevity. We honor the Liver King fake people that like did something in a day, but we're not honoring the Abel Jameses of the world who are like, yo, I've stuck with it. And they will be, that happens. And I think those are the people I'd prefer to help as well. Because at least they're not looking
Sure.
they're looking for quick wins, long success. Now, in terms of interviewing people, I just like, my God, I talk to my mom. All she does is ask me questions. How was the doctor? What'd you do for day? I was just saying good morning. And so I've always been, I think it just really implanted in me curiosity. And I think that's a great way to be successful in life, is just be curious. Like I was at the OB today and my girlfriend's like, yeah, he asks a lot of questions. This was so cool, by the way. My girlfriend's like, have this list of questions with the OB. He asks a lot of questions. And I love that about it. Because I thought she was going to say she's annoyed at me.
Yeah.
Right? How cool is that? And we were doing I love making content. I've been doing it since 2000, before your audience was born. I've been on these interwebs, building my own pages. And I love it. I just like it. I'll do it for the next 20 years. And so I do think it's interesting to do a lot of stuff, but find the things that you are excited to stick with for, I'd say about a decade. And by the way, everyone out here has discipline. I think I have a lot of people I see on comments. I'm lazy. I have discipline. Were you disciplined not to brush your teeth today? No, you did it. Did you not have discipline to breathe? No, you did that too. You have it. It's just in certain areas. So what can we learn about that we can apply in areas that also you want? Now, in terms of these people, I've liked making content, and I noticed on YouTube that we were doing. I was curious about very old people. I was curious about the questions we all ask, more in business. And what's interesting about business, by the way, if people out there like their jobs, is that one, your job can get taken from you, but two, I just found business is such a cool way to learn about myself. Just you're interacting with other people, you're interacting with failure, you're interacting with success, you're interacting with consistency. You're just interacting about so many capacities, leadership, delegation. And I was always curious about these older people who are rich and if they regretted working so much. I think that's a question everyone wonders, So I just asked, and this is part of the book, which is, everything in life you can get if you ask for it. Not everything. Okay. As I say that, I'm like, not everything. Okay. I want to be president. You don't ask to be it. You have to earn it. But if you want to get a raise, if you want to get a job, if you want to get a guest, if you want to get a customer, if you want to get a husband, you ask. And I asked my network, do you guys have any old grandparents that are rich? Ideally, 8 or 9 figures, or if not billionaires. And I got a few people suggesting people they knew that were willing to come on camera and share their wisdom. And I think what was fascinating about that is that we all have that in our own networks. It wasn't like I had some exclusive club I'm part of, like that I'm a card carrying member of like the exclusive old rich people network. I just asked, and then I asked and I asked and I asked, and you're only seeing the final product. But this is I share this because that's also true for anyone out there, is that go ask for things that you want, practice it maybe with the coffee challenge where you ask for a discount, and you realize like you get rejected or something. You're like, that's okay. I'm excited about this. Let me ask someone else. And that's what business is. It's a system, not even a system, but it's like just a series of asks. So yeah, I interviewed these guys, interviewed an astronaut. I went into space.
It's amazing.
That was crazy. I interviewed the founder of Kinko's. I've interviewed a World War II veteran. Interviewed the founder, Qualcomm, like $100 billion company. He came over to escape the Holocaust. Yeah, and I guess what I was really fascinated with is that were they too obsessed with work? That was the actual question I wanted to know. And I would say it's split, where not necessarily about the business. It's half of them. Bob Metcalf invented the Ethernet, no big deal. But half of them seem like they're like, yeah, I worked so hard to get this money, and I just kept wanting more money. Like there was never enough.
Right.
And I wish I just was more content with myself. But a lot of, to be successful sometimes in life, you have dissatisfaction. Like sometimes lows are, they're precursors to highs.
Yeah.
And so, but I did seem like half were never, it was never enough. And they spent more time working. And I think about being on your deathbed. Like I own 6 real estate properties. On my deathbed, I'm not going to be like, did I pay the HOA this month?
Yeah.
On your deathbed, you're like, God, oh no, I'm going. Don't take me, man. Was I, look at hopefully my kids, my grandkids, or, hopefully it's looking up at something pretty, or maybe I'll never die. That's part of the plan too. You can be optimistic.
Sure. Living off the pig
And,
parts.
yeah, I don't know, upgrade this stuff, dude. RoboCop or Terminator stuff. Yeah, and so I'd say half really seemed like they just kept wanting more external things, and I think the other half they had enough internal things. And so that's a reminder for me. It's like, being public on YouTube or having a book or having a business, there's never a point where it can be enough. And again, obviously, if you have enough or you're in abundant mindset because you're already rich or these things, it's easier to say this stuff. But recognizing that if you're unhappy, like it's not going to get magically fixed. It's better to be unhappy and rich, I say, than being unhappy and poor. But just still be unhappy. And so it's why can't we? And this is the thing I regret is like, and maybe it wouldn't have helped me get to where I am, but like I wish I was just more content with the way things were along the way for my 20s and 30s. I think just most of it, I was just like, oh, I'm not this, and I'm so annoyed with that. And it's just like, and I still have the same problems today, which is kind of fascinating. I'm just looking at it from the other side where I'm like, I was, last night I drank, and then this morning I was like, oh, you're guilty. And it's like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Or I did these office hours with you an hour ago, and I was like, did I make fun of this one guy too much? And it's like, maybe. And if you did, fine, you can apologize or you can accept it. And so again, it's kind of the same voices are there, but I think I just treat these voices from the other side of, I would say mostly self-compassion for myself. And that's a lot of inspiration from seeing people who are, everything was about the money.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was Jim Carrey who said this and something like this, where it's like, I wish everyone out there could get everything they wanted so that they would realize that that's not it. And so like the idea that you could be a billionaire and still be unhappy, maybe that is worse than being poor and unhappy. Because like when you're poor, at least you could hope to be a billionaire one day, and maybe that could make you happy. But if you're already a billionaire and you're still unhappy, what do you have left to go after? You have to almost go backwards according to the way that you were living your life before. You have to play a different game entirely, right?
And no one cares about you, especially if you're rich and unhappy.
Yeah,
Right? 'Cause they expect
that's true.
People are like, I don't care about your problems. And, I do think there's an amount of money, and I talk about, $1 million week and the freedom number, which is like, just find enough where you can actually do the work you want to do. Do that, man. It's so cool. There's so many ways, in my YouTube channel over the past 3 years. I think what's been crazy is so many ways of getting rich. You have to start today, but there's so many ways of it. whether you have a day job or you don't need a lot of time either. And there's like, I've seen a strawberry person, I've seen designers. I haven't done a lot of these like, laundromats, but my friend's parents just sold their laundromat for I think 2 million laundromats.
Wow. Yeah.
I was like, with quarters. That's also probably get taxed a lot of it from the government. They probably made a lot of that money. So I think that the takeaway for me of that as well is there's, even on my channel, a basement guy is a billionaire, ship guy worth 8 or 9 figures, um, cars, investors, and real estate. There's the one traditional ones, but there's just such a variety of it, and I always find that really inspiring.
But it's interesting, don't you think that, like, especially a lot of these people who have built $1 million businesses have failed a lot more than other people, right? You talk about that, like what was it, the law of 100, I think, in your book.
Yeah,
Talk about that next.
yeah,
It's about building reps, not about, you know, adding up your failures.
yeah. I like the reps thought, right? Because when we do something for the first time and it doesn't work, we generally understand why. We're like, oh yeah, well, it's my first time. I personally, I'm very hard on myself. Like I played pickleball maybe a few months ago, and I didn't beat everyone who played, and I was like, I'm a failure here. And it's like, bro, it's literally the first time you've played in a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Also, it's pickleball.
Yeah. I used to say I'm not competitive, and I just realized that I'm insanely competitive. I like, I was telling someone this recently. I was like, I realized I don't hate myself as much anymore, but now I have to hate other people. Like, and it's not that I even hate them. I realize I just want to compete with them. I need someone to compete against. I like it. And you could do it in a fun way. You don't have to always be so mad about it. Or I don't, something to work on. So what I've noticed though, is that we all in life have given up too soon. I know you have. I would bet a lot of money you have. We all have, right? Maybe it's in a exercise. Maybe it's in an instrument. Maybe it's in a relationship. Maybe for me, it was in my podcast. And so I found with Law of 100 is it's a simple framework to not quit too soon. And the idea behind it is do it 100 times. So if you're doing exercising, do 100 days. If you're doing content creation, do 100 posts. If you're doing sales, do 100 calls. And the idea behind it is, and what I've noticed is when you get to that 100 days, it at least gives you a clear delineation of when you can quit. And at that point, I think you can actually make an informed decision. I've really given it my all. I don't like this. And I think you can, because people are like, when should I quit? A lot of times you should quit when you ask that question. But what I've noticed is that having that mark, you've done it time and time and time again. And if it's not working, great. Maybe it is time to quit and find something that is working. But at least you have more of a mark. And I know for me with YouTube, I did it. And then towards like the 100th time of putting out videos, I put 3 videos out a week for a year. It's a lot of content.
That's a lot.
That towards the end of the year, I was like, I'm really liking this. This is fun. I'm going to stick with this. And then finally, I put out a video that did really well. And I was like, oh, yeah, wow, it's fun. And people want to watch these videos. And that's just been a nice Law of 100 as a framework that people can use in, so many aspects of their life even.
And also, you have to be bad for a while before you get good at anything, from making YouTube videos, certainly podcasting, workouts. It takes a long time to kind of dial it in and try the things that work best for you. And like for you, was cycling always the thing, or is it, the way that you worded it in your in your dream year, which I think we should talk about next, is like you want to get in the best shape of your life by cycling, through cycling, right? Not like by lifting weights and just like being on the treadmill, but like doing a specific thing that you love. And I think that's so important. It's a huge lesson that other people can take away.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens a lot of times is we do something and we guilt ourselves a lot. And I don't know if that's me unique. I don't think so. I feel like a lot of us guilt. And what I've noticed with health is and I think this is probably true with business. Not even probably, this is 100% true. How do you make it fun? It can be, I don't think people realize work can be fun. A relationship can be great. Health can actually be enjoyable and you look sick shirtless. So I ran for many years and I was like super skinny. And I was like, this running's pretty boring. I don't like this. Then I went to what I call prison, AKA Gold's Gym. And you go to these jail cells and all these other, convicts looking at you weird. And they're like putting things up and putting it down and making noises and taking photos. And I was just like, I don't really like being here. I did it, right? I would say my story is that I'm a disciplined person. And we can all tell ourselves whatever story we want, and I find that helpful. What I noticed over time is that what's the exercise and things like that I don't have to do, but I want to do. And sometimes I will say when you do something and you feel better about yourself, which almost every time after exercise you do, it is easier to continue it. Especially for me, though, I found that it was boxing, squash, and cycling gave me the fitness I wanted and the activities I wanted that also provided the health I wanted. Because I did a thing for a year where I got a six pack. Like I counted every almond. Like it was ripped, dude. I was like, bro, you look great, Noah. But I was also miserable. And I was like, I don't want to have a six pack if I have to live like this. I can have one shot of beer. There's nothing wrong with that too. People maybe either genetically or they live that way and they feel very good about themselves with that. Great. I felt that when I did these three activities, I'm learning skills. I have time to be quiet and I can think about things, or I like the competition, or I like that it's universal. And it was nice to be able to find that and be like, wow, I can really stick with these. No one's asking me to do it. And so cycling, I can't say I liked it in the beginning. I was normally, and this sounds, I guess, kind of strange, but I was cycling just to bars. So on like Sundays, me and Anton be like, yo, dude, you want to go bike to that bar and get drunk? He's like, yeah. I was like, sweet.
That's great.
And then on Fridays, we would go bike to tacos. We would have our breakfast meeting. So we'd bike to me and Madre's in East Austin and get tacos. And it's kind of like a fun thing. And then over time, I was like, I kind of like it. Let's go further. And yeah, you just kind of, it's like a whole new world out there for that kind of stuff. And I think if I could share anything about cycling for me and fitness and health related to it, is just being okay that there's cycles of fitness, meaning that there's seasons of it. So in December and even in January, it's cold. It's more cold. And I biked across some of America. And then I biked a ton in Girona when I was living in Spain in the summer. And I was just biking so hard that I was like, I need a break. I call it hibernation mode or polar bear body, AKA get fat. And what's different though is I used to every year for a decade do dirty December and clean January. And I think again, that's like all or nothing thinking. And so I would just be like in December, disgusting. And then in January, I'd be very lean, but I'm like, this is just not sustainable. And so this year I'm like, hey, if you've been biking a lot, you train really hard, as the weather gets better, you're going to do it again. Why don't we be okay if we take a little break and maybe try stretching a little bit? Or if you're not biking, I always set my workout routine every Sunday. So, hey, you're not going to do 3 workouts this week, just do 1. And guess what? You get an extra one in, great. If not, that's okay too. And so I think a lot of the acceptance and the thinking about sustainability has been liberating on all these different types of workouts. And the cycling for me, it's kind of opened a new world where you go to Spain and there's just like such gorgeous country. You get hours to think about things. You can literally eat whatever you want after a ride, which is pretty powerful, like super cool. And a chance to really, if you want to talk with someone, it's like a 2-hour hang. So I feel like cycling has definitely been an amazing experience. Doesn't mean I was like doing it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like riding. So guess what? Either I don't, or sometimes I do. And after almost every time I do it, I'm like, no, that was cool.
And it's for me, I find that was kind of my first sport was cross country, not literally biking across the country, but as a sport, the cross country mountain biking and running. And I find that it's so good for just like shutting everything off and either being with a friend or being with a group or just being with your own thoughts for a minute. And especially now that was kind of pre phones and pre all these distractions, but being away from those distractions. And there's something so amazing too about like biking or running through a city like Austin, where you're smelling tacos and you're smelling brisket. And it's this whole like experience every time. And I wish more people could experience it that way.
Yeah. I think what you said, which is, I just got to highlight, is mix it up too. Right. Like success is boring.
Yeah.
It really is. And you bike, like I live in Austin 15 years now. Biking around Town Lake is boring. So I'll bike around at night.
Yeah.
Or I'll bike around a different way. Or maybe I'll go on a bicycle somewhere else versus a road bike versus a gravel bike. And so I think there's something there where, you have power to make things more interesting for yourself. Bike with other people. Or my buddy Anton, who's coming tomorrow, he was like, yeah, I never bike with headphones in. I'm like, really? Oh, I always have an audiobook or a podcast where I got some like EDM beat bump, bump, bump going. And then I'm like, okay, let me mix it up. No headphones. And I'm like, whoa, I have to hang out with Noah for 4 hours? That's weird.
It's different.
It's a different experience, but it's amazing.
It's medicine. Yeah. And we've all got to do it. The more that we distract ourselves from being alone with our own thoughts. I mean, that's for me, it kind of is a substitute for meditation in a lot of ways. And it's more powerful when you have no other options. Like even if you're meditating, you're just like, I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna go over on my phone, I'm gonna check Twitter or whatever. You don't get that if you're going out for a long ride or a long run. And it's super important. But what about the dream year? I thought that was just a great part of the book. And it's not super complicated, but it's something that most people don't do.
It's I always have had the belief it's very easy to get what you want when you know what you want. But knowing what you want sometimes can be a little hard. And so how do you figure out what you want? Right. And I think that the kind of generic answer that's not bad, but it's like try a lot of things you don't want so you can find what you do. I'm like, okay, that works. That's definitely not that's an option. What I have found, especially when I was depressed or when I felt more stuck, was I would just think, okay, today is January 26th. Let's fast forward to the end of the year. How does the end of the year end? So like on my phone, this is 2 years ago. I'll just read it. So 2 years ago, I had a fantasy year. And again, just write out. So what's a fantasy year? I'll tell you exactly how to do it. You literally write out December 31st, what happened this year. And you don't have to do everything that you write in your fantasy, but it at least gives you ideas of things you want to do. And then you can break that down. I have super specific in the book, but I'll give like a high level. So I wrote in my fantasy, I want to be in a committed partnership and we have a cute little dog. We live in Austin and another city in the summer. Kids, God willing, good friends around us. We're close to each other's families. We laugh a lot. We do our best to make each other have a great life consistently. Work I love with great people. This could be real by 2024. There's nothing to be nervous about. And that's just like a snippet of what the future could be. And then when you actually write out your own fantasy, it's kind of like realizing life is a story that you write. It gives you something to work backwards from. Like, Seven Habits, highly effective people. There's a reason it's been around, trillion years. And the fantasy year then can be thought of as, okay, so if I know those are areas I want, doesn't mean you do all of them. I break it down into categories. I think you saw in the book. And then from the categories, really thinking about, okay, what do I actually really want? Do I really so I was inspired by a book to bike across America. And I was like, do I really want to do that? I was like, hell yeah. And then, okay, what else do I want? I want to go on Joe Rogan. And then I thought, I actually do not give a shit to go on Joe Rogan. It'd be cool. I'm not against it. But is it really like what I really, really want this year? No. A few years ago, I wanted to meet Bo Jackson because it was like my dad and my idol. So I was on my fantasy dream and then I put it as a thing within my business, part of work category. I was like, wow, I'm going to meet Bo Jackson. And then I ended up working my ass off to find a way to meet him. Now, the only other thing I would say about fantasy year and dream year, as I'm getting older, and I think this is a kind of thing I wish someone would have told me many years ago, the best things to do are things you can do consistently. I think what I used to do is every year have new goals on everything. It was like health-wise, go to the gym 3 times, bike 1 time, maybe use a sauna 1 time. All right, this year I'm going to do squash 2 times, boxing 1 time, weightlifting 1 time. And it's like, oh, guess what? You don't have to come up with new things every time. Just keep doing what works. Maybe make it better, maybe you don't. And I think that was something I neglected for a decade. And so in the past, give or take 5 years, it's like, no, it's working. Maybe you want to improve it a bit. Great. If not, if it's working for you, just stick with that too. That's okay.
Yeah, I remember making a bucket list probably around the time I was 30. And a couple years later, it like ran out. Checked so many of those things. Not every
Dude,
single
hell yeah.
thing, but that was kind of a letdown in a lot of ways because it was like, what do we do now? We've been to all these different countries. We've lived in all these different places, et cetera, et cetera. No one wants to hear me complain about this, but my point is doing it every year and revisiting it and be like, what do I want to keep doing? What place do I love that I can go back to? Can we rearrange our lives together so that we can spend 3 months in Spain or even just like 3 days in Spain or wherever you love to go? And revisiting that instead of coming up with that giant bucket list, I think is much more effective for most people out there.
I love that. Oh, one hack I was going to say for everyone out there. I like committing to my year and sharing it with an accountability buddy. So once you have your dream year, you break it down into work, workouts, yourself, maybe relationships. You can change your categories. Those are the ones I do. Workout, work, yourself, relationship. And what I noticed though, when I had an accountability buddy is that during the year you get excited to do other things. You're like, I'm going to do new stuff. It's like, well, Okay. So I keep a running list for the year ahead. So I already have a 2025 list, and my girlfriend really wants to go to Tokyo. So that's on the list. And then like I really want to do San Sebastian, which I might do this year, but if not, it's like, okay, it's on the list. So keep a running list for the future years. I think that's just kind of a nice way that you also have things you can look forward to, so you don't always have to start from scratch. But I think especially if you're not living the life you want to live, just work backwards. Like, okay, what would that life look like at the end of this year?
Mm-hmm. And you also say in your book, you have to define what success is for your life. And then critically, I'm adding the critically part, not worry about what others think, right? You need to make sure you're not drafting off the wrong dude ahead of you going in the wrong
Ooh, well
direction.
put. Well put, my friend. Well, the problem with success is that it's all labels from other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always like, oh, that person's doing great. I've seen great couples break up.
Oh, yeah.
Don't
So
worry
many.
about them, right? Learn from them, right? You can model or observe it. But I think we have to really think about what our own success means. And I used to not really think I was ever successful because I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I look at things as success and not success. I think I just like, what's the life I want to be living? And am I doing it that way for myself? And it's like, lately I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I am. Doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight for everyone, or maybe they are there too, which is amazing. But if you're not there, great, you can get there. And I think the more that you know, everyone hears about, comparison is what the devil or something like that. The enemy of the devil. I don't know the quote,
Yeah.
but I think I mess up the quote. I think comparison and envy and jealousy and all these things are really, really great emotions to feel and then learn from. Like, okay, do you want that or not? Great, but let's come back into yourself because we talked about these billionaires and regrets. There's never enough money. There's never enough sex. There's never enough that if you're chasing it, it'll ever feel the void. But if you can find out what's enough for you with these things and actually enjoy that, you're like, oh shit, maybe I'm already there, or maybe I'm a lot closer, coming back full circle than I realized.
It's beautiful. Noah, thank you so much for joining us here today. What is the best place to find $1 Million Weekend and all of your other assorted businesses and projects that you're always working on?
No, as I'm doing less and less these years, and they're working better and better. And there's something definitely about that where a lot of things in life, maybe it's health, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's business. It does take a little momentum to get started, but then the momentum really picks up over time. It compounds over time. So in all these things for everyone, just get started today. Not all of them. Don't do big ass, don't try to eat the whole elephant, but just take one bite. You can find me at Noah Kagan everywhere. And then the book is $1 Million Weekend at milliondollarweekend.com. And again, I think what's sneaky about this book, there's a lot of business books out there. I'm like you, man. I've read all these business. It's like, yeah, there's still not a book that I would have read or recommend. That's why I wrote one. But it's really a book about self-confidence wrapped in business. It's a confidence building book through business. I would say it's like kind of like Marie Kondo, but for money.
Sure.
That's my goal, where it's like, doing something this weekend and figuring out that you can actually do more and that you could actually change your life in 48 hours. Most people, when I'm observing, just like, wow, I'm capable. And that's the message I'm excited about. I didn't plan on thinking about it that way, but that's what ended up happening.
Dude, I'm stoked for you. And I was pumped just reading through it. Like, it I've already canceled a bunch of subscriptions. I've already asked for discounts on a bunch of SaaS services. Like, I filled up my notebook with more business ideas. This is a book that really gets you to do something, but not because it's telling you to do something. You have a few exercises in there and challenges, which I think are super valuable, but it's really not looking down at you and demanding that you follow this dogmatic business plan or anything like that. It's one of the reasons I love it. It's quirky. It's fun to read. It's a great book. Everyone check out $1 Million Weekend for sure.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Hey there, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. Before you go, please hit like and subscribe, or even better, leave us a quick review, which helps other people find their way to this free show. We've recorded over 400 episodes of this award-winning show over the past decade and change, and you can watch every single episode for free at fatburningman.com. So if you can think of a friend or a family member who might enjoy and benefit from our work, please take a quick second to share it with someone you care about. Thank you so much for all of your reviews, comments, likes, emails, and the kind words you send our way. We couldn't do any of this without you. Now, a quick disclaimer. The Fat Burning Man Show provides general information and discussions about health and related subjects and is not intended as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise, diagnosis, or treatment. If you or any other person has a medical concern, I wholeheartedly encourage you to consult with your healthcare provider. Now, before I sign off, don't forget to join our newsletter at fatburningman.com. When you sign up with your email, I'll send you a wild quick start guide along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes. This is Abel James signing off. Thanks so much for listening and have a great week.